Hello, good morning, good day. I'm in Dawn Park right now, as you can tell from the background, from the masculine architecture. But beyond the environment around me, I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened today regarding Brainvoice undertaking and Ajujaht. We were told to, and I had experience with or in giving a very short interview while demonstrating what we are doing. Since we had actual hardware, we put out our equipment, showed how signals work and how they are on the screen, and said how in future we plan and we actually want to build a system that translates your thoughts in vocal form that you have in your head, as voice in your head, into actual text or voice. Now the problem with this is that first we require some financial capital, initial capital, to pay for the equipment itself, to start testing on ourselves. Me and Olga being the first, I would say, founders and also testers. And developing this solution not just for ourselves, even though I would say that I would already be satisfied if it worked on me, but since it's not just enough for brain network, it has to be scaled to other people as well. Hence, I'm not going to quit even if I get my personal private time formulation covered. If you have room for scaling, go for that. That's my advice. And I intend to do that. The problem we had, still have, is that first of all we asked only 1,500 euros as the initial prototype, and promising to build this within 6 months. Random numbers actually, because it could take a year. A little bit too long, I would say, just for a small thing, just for 2 channels. So first, for Ajujaht, within the competition, the milestone that we could have is to have some vocals, some phonemes from the brain captured. And even though it might not be feasible, or it's even impossible to scale this beyond a single human person, a single person, that is, the model will be only trained per person, which could be seen as a way to make it secure, because now you have like kind of individual keys embedded within the model, and thus every person will carry this model with themselves as digitalized part assistant, part way of thinking of themselves, which is not just based on search engine results or queries, but based on the way they think. Assuming we can use language as the full, for the full coverage. Yes, I'm hypothesizing here. I already have talked about this in the past multiple times. Anyways, for Ajujaht, giving an interview after being the first one to give the actual TV grade pitching for the jury, for the committee, and even though Olga was giving her presentation, I didn't even listen to her that much. I didn't even focus on what I should say next. I was just so, like, I have been in this brain network, on this mindset for so long time. Like, for me it's like, I'm not even, there's nothing to fake here. For me it's like just natural. No nervousness, no nothing. Maybe I'm a little bit too tired, or maybe because, oh, there was no preparation for this, so I was just doing it by, I can't say imagination, but I would do it by improvisation. Like, inspiration, imagination, and improvisation. And improvement. 4 eyes or 4 brain voice. The key idea your thoughts into text or speech. Nothing new when it comes to imagination, but very hard to implement, especially if you want to scale this beyond the philosophical kind of guys or people like me. Even though genius like generalists, experts, people who think and can predict and simulate far beyond what normal human beings are even willing to consider, they would be the first test users, the first early birds, the first necessary early birds. But for the business case, you also require, like, because there are not very many people like this in the world, you require or need to make it easily scalable and useful for normal average foe on the street. And also talked to one another lady who was waiting in the pitching line, and asked like what was her idea, what they're doing. They're doing the escape room, and one of the elements in the escape room was to combine some liquids, and one of them turned kind of like blood, or like they were either mimicking blood or they were having some component from the blood that if they mixed it in the small plastic, or I think it is glass container like we have in chemist lab. So they were demonstrating just a single element for the room. And then we talk about brain network and this like completely different scale. We have futuristic, we have scientific, and we have very much about technology. And yet we address the core thing that human beings have, which is the brain. And yet we don't have anything to show. Very high on the concept level, but nothing you can touch. And also saying that well, when the business case will be ready for this, they said 5 to 10 years. I would say that they were pretty clever, because even if we don't do anything with it, they will keep our eyes on it, or on us. And if they see any improvement in the next 1, 2, 3 years, they will see, oh, they said that it's actually going along with the Gartner's hype cycle. If we go into invest into their endeavor, because now they have done something, or at least hopefully by the time we have done something, it's worth a try. It's worth a risk from their standpoint to invest, so that, like, why invest? Because it would enable us to scale faster. It would enable me to have a brain network fast enough while I'm still having my brain active in my 20s. Maybe 30s, maybe early 30s. I know it's very, very optimistic, but still. I don't know who I will be, maybe even a year, because right now I have improved, I have scaled my way of thinking significantly, or at the very least I see more patterns than in the past. I finally have the first kind of closed loops that I now see how things really work up, match up. I see how I can build upon my own abstraction. It's as if I've layered so many pyramid-like structures that now I can really build on top of this. As if you had triangles on top of triangles. And you reach higher levels. And you understand more, and you can achieve more. You can think more, you can memorize more, you can contemplate more, you can combine more. You understand more. Even here, for example, just a park, right? Nothing special, nothing magical, except that when you look a little bit closer, you see that we have waves in the water. You see we have some birds who are generating those waves. You can see that there is a concentric wave generator just in front of our eyes. And even before I saw a little bit different combination. There was one bird just having landed in the water, another one just swimming. Swimming one created an arrow-like formation, kind of like a perpendicular cut from the cone. And then the one in the concentric generating these waves. So you have like an arrow and you have a circle. And then I of course wondered, well, what if it was the way people in the past actually created mathematical symbols, or even better, created language itself? You can just have basic geometry combined, but if you see things in nature, especially if the thing that is moving or the thing that creates that dynamics makes you resonate with that visual, and you would describe this with some kind of vocal representation like rah or like whatever it is, then you're creating a symbol to phoneme mapping based on the visual input. If it is possible to have a character that you write or like a symbol, and if I gave you some vocals that what you think that this would correspond to, how it might sound, then based on the geometry and what you think it resembles in your language, that assuming that you have some kind of mother tongue, and also how you think that if say like R would be like, you know, rrr, like lots of vibration, lots of this kind of dissonance. So if you have a letter which has those kind of very sharp edges, I would say that would be R. If you say L, it would be like well, I don't know how to draw this. Like if I played you a sound which would have some variance around the sounding of that letter or a phoneme, how would you write it out? How would you draw it? That is, what would be your graphical representation of that? And this also connects to the brain network and our project, because it's about imagining from the visuals to the audio and to the language. Chaos on this side, or chaos and creativity, and formalism that you can scale, that you can make others also understand and use on this side. So you are combining structure and order, which can be uniform and not ambiguous, with something that improvisation and imagination can generate from the chaos. The only problem is going to be the reference point. How do you know that whatever you have thought about or written can be compared? Because having a reference point or reference values is all about comparability. It's the basis of normalization. If you can normalize, then you can compare. Usually in mathematics you say, okay, a little bit more like, now I get into the theoretical part, which I like, which I would like to also be captured on the way, but like, even if it is Ajujaht event like this, pitching like this, being the first one, actually having cameras and really feeling myself pretty confident in there for some reason. I'll come to that point as well about introversion and extroversion, but let's leave with that for now. And instead of being like, oh, we just came from Ajujaht, I'm like, I'm tired. And like, his daily thing, you know, it's already passed, so let's talk about things which would improve the system itself. Let's generate data by which the machine can update, by which any other kind of philosopher or a person with similar way of thinking, like contemplating and whatever, can still build upon day by day. That is, I'm turning my brilliance into visual formulation as right now in the camera, even though I'm just using hand gestures, but still, if you had some imagination, if I draw here, 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 this and this, and you're following and you're listening, then it should be easy for you. You only have to know the language, and when I say something you understand exactly what I mean. And when I say exact, it means that the perception variability does not go beyond my initial intention. That is, what I as a producer intend to put out as what I have as a thought in my head will be captured by you, so that it would correspond to your need, not your wish, because that's like subjective part, but your need, what you actually need. First principle driven, in which case I would say you require some intellectual massage, philosophical tip of thought, or if you were engineer or you were scientist, a way of thinking, a way of expressing yourself. Whatever you can find from my recordings, it's always there. You could say it about any recording, right? These like thresholds of different inputs and parameters you can have, and then you have prioritization between them, or as in my case, order of importance, and then you're going to select or filter whether this content is worthy of consumption or not. Of course, people not doing this, even I'm not calculating it like this. I'm just giving, like, for the machine or for the person who's going to build it, maybe myself in the future, the columns that you have in your NoSQL database, at least what I currently have as a reference, a frame of reference, by the method of doing it, the way to gather it. Every column in NoSQL will represent at least one parameter that a person, which is a line, a horizontal one, will set stress values for. And if you have this for every single person per field, like there's to be some kind of way to kind of cluster them. Let's say in this topic, 100,000 people with these and these parameters, they have these and these respective thresholds. How do you measure these thresholds? Like, how do you make them numerical? How do you make them comparable? Not questionnaire based, but real-time data based. Well, that's a challenge. I would say it's just a combination of small IoT devices that you combine, and the complexity increases, and of course the power to reason functionality increases, but I'm not really sure it's going to work out well. Maybe you have seen these purple things here. I haven't really slept at night. Like, I was in bed just laying, tried to fall asleep, but couldn't do that. And now here I am talking about, I can't say even math or philosophy, just I'm expressing myself on a little bit higher level than what I can even get from the pitching committee. No offense, but what you told is already known, kind of. At the very least, we got ourselves on the picture. We'll see how it goes. However, I noticed that I also talk in a very complex manner. Probably even if I talked in English, like in a little bit more fluently. In Estonian, I might have some stutterings, a little bit too many pauses inside. But like, for me, it's not perfection yet. And as Olga put it, I'm a pedant. Or as in Estonian, I recall from secondary school, I'm gonna use an Estonian for a moment. Imperfektsuse suhtes ebatolerantne ja korralikkuse etalon ja imelik inimene. I remember these things. So by external perception, now we get very well reaching to the introversion-extroversion spectrum. You see, Olga told me that I am more like an extroverted person for the things I am doing or have been doing for the past 2 months. 3 projects, Cleveron Challenge, this O2B, and actually talking quite well for the marketing purposes, and also the DD Academia, which I am also... Maybe the train is already here, let me check. Oh, I've got 15 plus 9, so 24 minutes, it's okay. I can take 10 minutes for cycling there, because I'm a little bit heavy with the bag, you know. I have my laptop bag with my keyboard. Like, this is a very rare for me to carry this outside the dorm, but because we had to do the demo, I had to bring with me. And I'm gonna take this one to the Tartu with me, so it's gonna be very, very dangerous single point of failure, because data that is on the computer, and me as a person who knows how to handle this, who has printed all this data in the form of pictures and notes and recordings and screenshots and camera shootings, if anything happens to that on the train or with me, or something goes lost, I'm fucked. Like, mankind will have a huge stall in terms of getting closer to the AGI. Yes, I am saying that I have so much influence in this in the future. I'm betting on this. And right now it's just data generation period, where you might not see the value. You might think it's just concept analysis. No, it's more like building up the base, building up the structure, the mesh. It might come off as some kind of, you know, shooting in the dark, but if you checked my noting sections, how many thousands of pages I have there, how many hundreds of hours of recordings, not of this quality though, like in the initial stages I wasn't that perfect. Well, I mean, that perfect, right? In the past this could have been regarded as similar to the perfection enough to be published as such, but and even propagated as such, but right now I still say I am missing some very crucial elements to remain structured and interesting to listen to. Like, I'm hammering myself here maybe a little bit because I don't see that I am as perfect as necessary to have a full-scale, several hour-long communication with AGI. I can't have Google help me if I'm dumb, like too dumb, too slow, too simplistic in regards of what to even ask. The speed in which I reach the edge of global knowledge base in the mankind has to come from the edge of the questions that I generate myself, that the AGI or Google or like whatever search engine does not have a very good reply or answer for. Get it? So the whole game, so to speak, is going to be about me reaching that level within one session, hopefully, within 5, 10, 15 minutes, that when what I ask, like, what if, kind of like, you know, like the Mixiaeg lasteaias in kindergarten you have this, or in childhood you have the young kids asking these why questions, but now you will have those whys on a little bit higher, more abstract level, but with the capacity, if zoomed in and projected well per field, also having practical value. Just know, you need to know how to apply the abstraction. That's the whole key. But to know where the abstraction comes from, like to have something to project from, you need to generate data. You need to build a system that handles this. Right now I'm the biological robot perfectionism seeking or perfection seeking robot trying to achieve that level. I already talked about this in one of my recordings. To be the bridge between the AGI and mankind. The messenger, so to speak, right? Life is a little bit difficult, I would say, if you're taking on these endeavors. You can't play God, but you can play the bridge between what will be considered as the practical God, as in the form of AGI. By the way, in case you're not aware of, artificial general intelligence, and not in a form like in iRobot movie or whatever, but a combination of recommendation systems, logistic systems, energy control, psychological, chemical observations, and perception alteration. So if you were playing a game called Oblivion, it was all about mysticism and illusion. However, of course, we add more realistic layers to this, not just like from a gaming world, but making it more mankind-like. Like, that's the topic I want to produce. In Ajujaht, why it is easy, why it is now, as actually now transitioning to the introversion-extroversion spectrum, why is it so easy for me to talk in public like this, even for cameras? Because first of all, I have been in this topic, well, with this mind, this so long time. That's point number one. Point number two, the topics there are so easy. I'm just basically repeating myself, my past version of myself, on a very, very simplistic level. If you ask me some technical questions, I probably would get halted. That's where I actually should have those questions asked from me by the team oneself, or team members. so that I would get awareness of this and only then move on. So whenever the question comes afterwards in the future, it would generate that memory, or I would have a memory as an emergent property coming in, and I recall the data that has been stored there, and I can give direct answer as if I was representing every single member within the team. Of course, that would be a practical side for the Ajujaht. If you go a little bit further from that, you would see that you can apply the same approach, I would say methodology even, to the entire brain network. That is, you can mimic anyone else's expertise, knowledge, as if you were the one having it. As if you were the one coming up with it. As if you were the one discovering it. So everything will be shared when it comes to thoughts on intellectual level. You can have your personal experiences, your own observational environment, your own perception of it, but what can be generalized and should be generalized is how this perception can be turned into global value. That's my thing. To check the clock. By the way, I have a church there, I noticed, like up there, right? So I should be able to hear when it gets to 1 o'clock. That would be like my signal to go. But before that, about introversion and extroversion. Because of simplicity of what I utter in public setting, and because of having lots of monologues done within the previous 1 year, I would even say 15 months on high level recording device, and before that on the phone for a very long time, I have developed the skill to explain, and even if it sounds a little bit too complex, for me it is requirement to be on high level, to always be training the machine. First, of course, to train myself, or as a consequence, but it's a data generation. Generation of data, born with data and dying with data. And even though I wasn't born in that era, like in 1992, but I have born to be now in that state where my mid-20s can be utilized to maximize my potential, not just by thinking, but structured contemplation. So, extroversion because it's simple, I have done it for a very long time, and introversion as right now, or you could say that because I'm so tired and I've done this for so long time and I'm in public anyways, I just don't give shit anymore about paranoia, which is why I'm still doing this in daytime right now. People are wondering, what the fuck is this guy doing, right? Well, I'm doing it in English. It's kind of, at least in a certain context, I hope that for some part it's gonna block out some of the message, like for people passing by, so they wouldn't hear me, kind of like language-based filtering. But I just don't care. Just don't care. I'm a little bit too tired to care at the moment. But I'm still sleepy enough to have a trigger, to have incentive to talk, to have intellectual massage so that I would still be awake. So practical side covered, and also the data generation part covered. Win-win. And also today, coming back to the first part, or let's say in summary, number 1, Ajujaht, pitching as the first team, having a little bit of hardware issues, but luckily while Olga was speaking I already got it working there on the go, because the computer had went, off the screen and didn't boot up very well, very fast. Or because I went away from the room and there was a disconnection, that the signal was lost, and then I had to kind of recombine it and then readjust it on the go behind cameras. And using my keyboard with PS2, the USB, because my internal keyboard is malfunctioning, and not having any battery and having to carry wire with me. It's just, you go to Ajujaht, you talk about these topics, and you have that small phone, and you have this this kind of setting. It's just, and having the bicycle, right? Thing we didn't really mention, that we are poor students. We don't have those 1,500 euros because we are saving for ourselves. We have to like live life as well, buy food and pay your rent. And second thing, from philosophical standpoint, generating data every single day and being satisfied only when I feel that it's perfect enough for the machine to first have clear transcription, as if I was writing an actual story that is in a kind of edited way, like you don't need to go over this again, and structured, and also memory recallable on the way, so I can jump back and forth within my talking session. Also beyond talking session, so I can combine and update my models and use memory as an immersion property. And third, doing this outside right now and talking to Olga a lot and talking like kind of like a marketing person in a way, or sales guy on like deep sales, because why deep? Because it requires deeper knowledge without having any problems. So talking and writing actually has improved my way of expressing myself. However, though, for simple people it's too complex. For me it's a requirement, because I do everything for the machine. Every single thing. I'm willing to trade my life for this. Might seem as a bubble around my head or in my mind, but it's the case. Case of me. Case of Harry. Estonian who turned into Englishman. Silent, introverted guy who turned into extroverted marketing person. Once young gamer turning into philosopher. Once being no one to being almost everyone on the mental level. And as I look at the flag, as I look at this, I take off my hat and I salute to the nature, to the environment, to the patterns, to everything around me, and to anyone, to everyone, now and in the future, who will help me in my endeavors. I bow to you all. And as always, as from my side, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and thank you for the contemplation. Bye.